Welcome to Studio Sessions at 2. We are going to be collaging on a gel plate. I think this is a beautiful way to use your paper scraps. I actually am working with photocopies of my gel prints. I love to do that because it allows me lots of copies for experimenting on projects like this. So I'm using a circle punch. I used a 1 1/4 inch and a 1 1/8 inch, and ultimately they really looked like the same size. So I just went with one punch, and I punched out several circles, and I thought I would just get enough. I didn't know how many I would need really, and I've got several designs. They were all in the same colorway, so they coordinate. And once I had all my circles cut out, I placed them in front of me, and then on a dry gel plate, I began to place my circles. You could put a grid underneath your gel plate if you really want to be precise, but I was just playing and I wanted to see if this was going to work. This is a technique I first learned about from Foil Art on YouTube. She's a brilliant gel plate artist, and so I wanted to try this. So I laid out all of these circles and I tried to, get blues and greens and things like that, but really there was no way to tell until I turned it over. So I just went with it, and then I went ahead and once all of my circles were in place, I used a Posca pen. This is just a paint marker, and I did this in gold, and I went around and added an outline in this gold color to every single circle. So it took a little while, and then I definitely needed to let that layer dry. And once it was dry, it was time for the next step. And so I am going to use a matte gel medium. I'm just going to place quite a bit of it all over my gel plate. This is going to act as an adhesive because I'm going to need something really to pull up all of these layers. So I'm using my brayer and getting a smooth coat and trying to make it even, hoping I didn't go too heavy, or even worse, not heavy enough in an area. But you can tell that even though it dries clear, it goes on a little cloudy, so it's not too difficult to see if you've covered your whole plate. Now on this layer, I wanted to make sure that my gel medium was wet, again, so that it's acting as an adhesive. So it does dry pretty quickly, so I did have to add a little bit more as I went along, but I'm adding another layer of circles. I wanted them to overlap, and again, this isn't precise. I wasn't really concerned about that, and I have no idea which circles, if I'm like adding the same one on top of one or anything, but again, I'm not worried about that. This is just something I've wanted to do and experiment with, and it's really a lot of fun and something I will definitely do again. So I'm laying out all of these circles. I'm going to overlap. Some of them are closer than others. Some of them overlap beautifully. Again, you could use a grid if you felt that that was really important. So once my circles were in place, I let the matte gel medium dry completely, and then I got out my gold Posca pen again and did my best to then outline just the edges of those circles that were going to be exposed on the front side of this print. I hope I said that correctly. And so I just went around and outlined those circles as well. Once my Posca pen had dried, the medium was dried, everything was dried, I decided that I wanted to add a little bit of a stencil background. And I happened to have this little circle swirl stencil and thought, well, since we're working with circles, this should work well. I quickly realized that with the paper circles, there were too many layers for my brayer to really push the paint through. And so I had to come up with an alternative. So I got out my blending brush, and I was a little nervous about the pressure that I was applying and that the paint was going to seep through, but in the end it worked out just fine. I did need something that was going to be able to get through that stencil. And like I said, the brayer just wasn't going to work. So I just went ahead and applied this all over the stencil. I'm using a color, it's sap green. It's by Winsor & Newton, and it's their Galleria acrylic. Pulling off the stencil was a lot of fun, and I thought, okay, now we're on to something, so we can move to the next step. So I let all of the paint dry, and then I did another layer of the matte gel medium, and I used my silicone spatula to apply a nice layer of it. And then I'm going to spread that out with my brayer again, just to make sure that I'm getting coverage over the entire plate. So the gel medium did take a little while to dry, but I didn't want to mess up. I thought we're doing good so far, so I didn't want to mess anything up, and I just made sure that I had a really good even coat and then spread it out with my brayer. I decided that I was going to have a painted background, so I chose a liquid acrylic, so a fluid acrylic by Liquitex. It's turquoise blue. And I should have learned my lesson that the brayer wasn't going to be able to push the paint through all those layers. So eventually I decided I'm just going to get out a paintbrush, and that worked really well. Once all of the blue paint was dry, I applied another coat of the matte gel medium, and then I placed a piece of wet strength tissue paper over my gel plate and let it dry overnight. So it's the next day, and I was so excited to pull this. Everything was dry. I was just kind of holding my breath a little bit, and I started in the corner, and once I did and saw that everything was going well so far, I thought, oh my goodness, this is going to work. And as I pulled the print and saw those beautiful outlined circles and all the dimension and all the color and shapes, I just love this. I will definitely use this technique again, and I can't wait to see what I'm going to do with the print. I so hope you enjoyed this tutorial and are encouraged to break out your gel plate and try something new. Again, it is a great way to use your scraps of paper, and happy creating, and I will see you next week at 2 o'clock on Tuesday for another studio session. Happy creating.